Are you afraid of talking to people? Let's say you even get worked up trying to order some food on the phone, or if you receive a call and you don't know who it is, your heart starts to beat faster and you get nervous. If you're anything like me, when I was younger, I was so afraid of talking to new people. And this is a huge barrier that you need to overcome if you want to progress into adulthood and also into entrepreneurship. Perhaps you get a wrenching feeling in your gut when you need to talk to someone new or when your phone rings and you don't know who it is. I know me personally, that's exactly how I felt. I felt so nervous and I had terrible anxiety, even when it just came to going to school, picking up the phone, or just social interactions in generals. But now I'm cold calling for my job and I'm having phone calls with people who pretty much hate my guts because the last person you want to be speaking to is someone trying to sell you something. And yet I still do it almost every day. And I guess the question is, how do I get to the point where I can do that and I have the guts to and I'm comfortable to do that? So I'm just going to take you through exactly how you can do it. And it's sort of how I did it as well. Firstly, your day to day has to be adjusted. If you're anything like me, if you're afraid of calling and talking to new people, you're probably socially anxious, right? And the only way to get through this is through exposure therapy. What you need to do is incorporate going outside into your day to day routine because I'm presuming that if you've got this social anxiety, I know I just didn't go outside whatsoever, or maybe once a week. Every day at this point, you should be going outside. It should be a non negotiable that you will go outside for at least one reason. And by making it an everyday rule, it will keep you accountable and consistent. So, for example, go for a walk, even if you have no plans. And it's just super important as it gets you out of your head and will help you to realize that things aren't actually so bad in the big wide world. And I'm not even asking you to go out and talk to people, right? I'm just asking you to get outside because most of the time this fear that you have of talking to people or picking up the phone is it's in your head, right? And this applies to picking up the phone if you're nervous about that because that's just a social interaction as well, right? So being outside in the world will desensitize you the to the stimuli that makes you anxious. And the actual reality of talking to someone on the street or someone on the phone or a girl, for example, is never as bad as what you think will happen. You think something terrible will happen, but if you were to actually write down what am I worried about, when I pick up the phone, or what am I worried about when I talk to this person in public or at school or something, most of the time it's never as bad as what you think will happen. And when you write it down, you'll realize that this is just it's almost a phobia, it's almost an irrational fear. And it most of the time is an irrational fear. Unless it's your boss calling you or something, that makes a bit more sense. But realistically, who's calling you? Someone might be selling you something if they're calling you on the phone or in public. Someone might just be saying hi. Most of the time people just say hello, and you can have a pleasant conversation. But let's say something bad does happen, right? You pick up the phone and someone's yelling at you, or you go outside, someone yells at you. Just remember that's fine. It's absolutely fine. Even if someone yells at me on the phone, I just think, so what? I just have to make the next call. And unless there is something to learn from the interaction, right? Maybe you called at a bad time or maybe you upset someone. Most people or some people are just miserable. And it's good for you to accept that it's okay for them to be angry or annoyed at you, but you don't have to let it impact you. You might feel like it does, and that's fine. But afterwards, when you break it down, you should realize that it doesn't matter and it's okay for them to be annoyed at you. Because most conflicts simply boil down to I don't like the way you conduct your life. right? And that's absolutely fine. That's not an issue. And the thought process that I have is it's just a good thing it's my life and not yours, right? So most of the time, you're not going to have these conflicts, right? And here's a tip for you. Before you talk to someone in public, someone new, let's say, or on the phone, don't think about what you're going to say, right? Obviously, if you're cold calling, it's different, but just throw yourself into the interaction. Because the more you think in these basic day to day interactions, for someone who's got this anxiety, the harder it will be because you're not a fucking baby, okay? Right? You can have a normal conversation, right? I imagine you've been speaking that language the whole of your life. You're able to speak to your mum perfectly fine, right? So you are able to have a normal conversation without having to rehearse what you're going to say. And most of the time, the longer you think about what you want to say, the harder it will be because you'll work yourself up rather than just, it's like standing at the edge of a pool and being like, I'm going to jump in, I'm going to jump in, and thinking about how cold it's going to be rather than just jumping in. If you think about it, you're probably not going to do it. Now, maybe that tip I'm saying, just throwing yourself in. If you're wanting to like talk to women, don't do that. It might be good to have some idea of what you want to say for the first sentence, just to get you going. But otherwise, I don't think you should rehearse. And before long, with that tip, even just going outside every day, you will naturally run it. I'm not even going to tell you to go talk to people because naturally you just will. You'll get bored of just walking and you'll end up going to a shop or getting a coffee and someone might talk to you, right? Just going outside is the bare minimum, but even that I think works because most of the time the issue is that you're just stuck alone in the house and you're stuck in your own head. And before long you'll get better. The short bits of conversations that you have with people, saying goodbye to people, that can be awkward, but the more you practice, the quicker you'll get and you'll be able to reel off, see you later, do the handshake properly without mucking it up. When I first started to I was homeschooled, so when I first started to like make more friends, you know everyone would do this handshake to sort of say goodbye, and every time I just fuck it up. And you just laugh at yourself and ask them like, oh, how do you do that properly, like. And people laugh, and all my friends did laugh, but before long, you're doing it perfectly, and it's not a big deal. And again, before you know it, you'll have quick and witty responses to people because you aren't super worried about what you're going to say, and your brain has time and is relaxed enough just to say it. As I mentioned, I was homeschooled and I went straight into the workplace. And I was, pretty socially awkward. I wasn't great. I managed to get this job. And I remember finding it quite difficult to sort of talk to people at the start. Like I'd say the wrong thing, say good afternoon instead of good morning, just stupid stuff like that. And by the time I was leaving, I actually felt like I was starting to I'm not a super charismatic person, but I was starting to get some charisma, get some wit. I was able to, someone would say something to me, maybe it was poking fun at me or something. Instantly, I was able to throw something back at them because my brain had just got more used to these social interactions and having to think on my feet. So that's why I say just go outside. I think that'll do 90% of the work for you. The rest of it, you'll figure out as you go. I hope that helps. Please remember to subscribe.